Hello and welcome to Alternative Design's presentation of Indexing, the Next Generation. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. At Alternative Design, we specialize in the distribution of unique, safe money products, like the one I'm happy to tell you about today. My name's Tim Harding. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for Alternative Design, and you can reach me directly with any questions after the webinar at my email address, tim.harding, H-A-R-D-I-N-G, at adisusa.net. That's tim.harding at adisusa.net. Or you can reach me directly on my direct line at 858-240-2059. That's 858-240-2059. And once again, thank you so much for joining us. You know, every year, a major money manager by the name of BlackRock does a survey of their investors to find out what's on their mind, take their pulse, and figure out what the trends are. Well, this past year was a very, very interesting survey. The 2013 survey revealed something that I found incredibly striking. It found that of the investable dollars in the United States right now, 48% of them are sitting on the sidelines in cash. That's unprecedented. I mean, think about that. Almost half of the investable dollars in the United States are sitting on the sidelines in cash. That represents an astronomical figure of 13.1 trillion with a T dollars not invested. Now, for you and I, this can create a great opportunity, but there is one major drawback, and that is that sitting in cash doesn't mean that your prospects and clients have money in a shoebox hidden in the back of the closet. It doesn't mean that they've stuffed it under a mattress where they can get to it when you show up to give them an alternative. No, that money is sitting in a bank. Bank deposits, in spite of historically low interest rates, have been growing steadily year after year after year and now exceed $13 trillion. It is absolutely unprecedented. Well, one thing that these investors do not have now is market exposure. So unfortunately, they missed out on a major run in the S&P 500 this past year. But another thing that they are lacking is something that all financial advisors believe in with all their heart, and that is diversification. So I want to talk a little bit about diversification versus asset allocation, because the next generation of indexing has to embrace this concept. Now, when we talk about diversification, we're usually saying, you know, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Okay, that's diversification, not holding only one stock or one sector of the economy, but exposing yourself to a broader range of the market, like the S&P 500. You know, that's diversification, but it's not asset allocation. Asset allocation is something completely different. I want you to imagine for just a moment that you're a street vendor in New York City, and you've got a cart, and you've got choices as to what you can sell off of that cart, and you decide that it might be a good product to offer if you had sunglasses, because tourists walking down the streets in New York City might have forgotten their sunglasses. This looks like a good opportunity for you. You decide to diversify, so you carry 5 different types of sunglasses, but it's all sunglasses. You know what? If it's a rainy day, you're probably not going to sell any sunglasses. So you realize this. You decide you're going to add to your product portfolio umbrellas. Well, when it's sunny, you're probably not going to sell any umbrellas, but you will be selling sunglasses. And when it's raining, you're not going to be selling sunglasses, but you're likely going to be selling umbrellas. That is asset allocation. One asset performing when the other does not. We'll talk more about how important that is as we go along. Now, a number of years ago, a gentleman by the name of Jack Bogle wrote a couple of books. The Little Red Book of Investing is one of the most famous. And his argument was that money managers so seldom outperform the market as a whole that it's a complete waste of an investor's dollars to spend them on a money manager. Instead, he argued, they should strive to invest across the broader market by investing in something like the S&P 500 index. And people liked that idea. And of course, Jack Bogle, the founder of Vanguard, became incredibly rich because of that idea. And eventually, insurance companies and even banks begin to adopt the practice of indexing. Now, indexing, if you've had any experience at all with fixed indexed annuities, and likely you have if you come from the insurance industry, indexing has certain advantages, and we shouldn't deny them. I'm a big fan of indexing. It gives you broad market exposure to whatever the index is linked to. There are nominal fees in indexing because there aren't management decisions to make, and of course there's no management risk because you don't have to rely on a professional money manager deciding where to place the money. However, indexing has some disadvantages that we as financial professionals ought to be very, very aware of. First of all, you're subject to wherever the market movements go. You're along for the ride. You really have no steering mechanism. You're only going to get what the market is willing to give you. You have the inability to react. You cannot take a defensive position if you're invested in the broad market, even if you foresee something coming. Nor can you capitalize on opportunities that are created by changes in the economic environment. In other words, there's really no strategy. And this is the important thing that I'd like to get across in today's webinar. You really have no asset allocation. Because even though you're diversified across a broader market, say the S&P 500, it's all stocks. It's all stocks. If you're investing in a passive broader market index, it's rather like Tom and Huck taking a raft down the Mississippi River. You're going to go wherever the current takes you. You know, you never hear of anybody taking a raft up the river, even when it's advantageous to do so. You're at the mercy of the currents. And so it is with a broader market index. You're at the mercy of the market's currents. Though you may be diversified, maybe all your eggs aren't in one basket, but you still have only eggs. What I'd like to do today is show you a way that you can help your clients add some English muffins and some bacon and sausage to those eggs. And the way we do it is by linking to multiple asset classes. Not just diversifying over one asset class, but linking to multiple asset classes. This is called asset allocation. And numerous studies have demonstrated that asset allocation accounts for over 90% of a portfolio's total return. Not market timing, not picking the right mutual fund, not picking the right FIA, not picking the right money manager, but asset allocation is the single most important thing in the overall performance of a portfolio. So, the lesson is clear that you should be diversified over several different asset classes, but you need to do it with a specific strategy, not just willy-nilly. You can't be like this guy here and be so diversified you don't even know what you're in. Okay? You need to have a strategy, or you need to be linked to a product that has a strategy. I call this active asset allocation. And the product I'm going to tell you about today is only one of several that we offer on our platform. But I'm going to use it as a specific example of active asset allocation. The product comes from Goldman Sachs, one of the world's largest banks, and it's called the Momentum Builder. The Momentum Builder is a 7-year product multi-asset linked with 100% participation in the performance of the index and no cap. And in the event that the index itself doesn't perform, it pays an annual interest payment of 1% minimum, or the performance of the index, whichever is greater. Now, this is a very unique product because it's a rules-based methodology. In other words, it's all math. It's all math. There is no money manager flying by the seat of their pants. This is a mathematical equation using mathematical logarithms to accomplish very specific strategies. It utilizes modern portfolio theory and momentum theory to determine the mix of the asset classes inside the product. And it is rebalanced each and every month. It is a dynamic index. It's not passive. It changes on a monthly basis based on what the math in modern portfolio theory and momentum theory tell it is happening in the marketplace. So what asset classes? Well, it's spread over 7 different asset classes. I'll walk through them very briefly, but I think in the future you're going to want to take a closer look at exactly what's in here. The first asset class is cash, okay, money market, followed by developed market equity. And you'll notice in that column that the S&P 500 is represented in there. This asset class represents stocks of countries that have economies that are mature, like the United States, but also Japan and European markets. It has an asset class of U.S. bonds, but not just U.S. bonds. You'll notice that they have treasury bonds in there, investment-grade corporate bonds, as well as high-yield corporate bonds in that asset class. And then emerging markets. Markets whose economies are growing faster than the mature economies in the other asset class. Economies like India, China, Brazil, all kinds of exposure there, both to stocks and to bonds. And then, interestingly enough, alternative asset classes, infrastructure, real estate, senior loans, leveraged buyout loans. Wonderful diversification. Then, of course, no diversified portfolio, no asset allocation strategy is complete without some exposure to commodities. And this one has exposure as well to commodities and specifically to gold and then inflation-linked U.S. bonds. So how does the strategy work? Well, it's actually quite fascinating. What it does is on a monthly basis, it runs every possible portfolio combination of those 7 different asset classes through an analysis linked to modern portfolio theory. If there was any portfolio sampling there that was in excess of 5% in volatility, it's immediately discarded because volatility equals risk. Of the remaining portfolios, they then apply modern portfolio theory to choose the one that has the highest return with the least amount of risk, and that is the portfolio setting for that particular month, and it's redone on a monthly basis. This reduces the volatility in the returns and keeps the index broadly diversified, but with a specific strategy. Here are the returns from the past year, calendar year to date, up through August. And you can see very few large ups or downs, but a steady progression. And historically, and we can backtest this historically because it is all mathematically based, you can see the red line in the center of this chart outperforms on average all of the other asset classes, which, because they have no volatility control, swing wildly from time to time. So yes, there are major gains, but more importantly, there are also major losses. And I speak a lot all across the country on the importance of not losing money as opposed to the importance of the higher return. Higher returns don't matter if you give it all back. And once you give it back, it's twice as hard to regain it. This product is designed not to suffer those major losses, and you can see that it does a pretty good job here. But let's talk some hard numbers. Let's talk about the actual returns that this product would have had historically, going back 10 years to 2003. 22.47% in a principal protected and guaranteed product. Let me say that again. A principal protected and guaranteed product. The principal, your client's principal in this product is not at risk. And then you can go forward, 8.04%, 2.75, 6.93, 5.33. Oh man, 2008. The only negative number this index has turned in 10 years, minus 1.36. Oh, but wait a minute. What was happening to the broader market, the stock market in 2007, 2008, and 2009? It was down 50% from its highest point to its lowest point. And this index only had a negative 1.36 1 year and was positive in 2007 and positive in 2009 and 10 and 11 and 12 and 13, and it's up year to date almost 4%. Folks, that is the power of true asset allocation. This is a product that has diversification not of a single asset class, but diversification of asset classes. It utilizes active allocation. It's not a passive index. It's a dynamic active index. It has a guaranteed minimum return of 1%. Is completely principal protected if held to maturity, which is 7 years. And oh, here's a surprise for you. It's also FDIC insured. And for the first time, if you have a life insurance license, you're going to be able to offer an FDIC insured product and get paid for it. It's called the Goldman Sachs Momentum Builder. And we'll talk more about how you get paid on money your clients have in the bank in a little bit. You know, there are 3 major sectors in the financial services industry. Lots of smaller ones, but 3 major sectors. And they are, of course, the securities industry, the insurance industry, and the banking industry. And of the investable dollars available in the United States right now, the last figures I have indicate that Wall Street, the securities industry, controls about 8.7 trillion of those dollars. The insurance industry only controls about 4.8 trillion, while the banking industry currently controls $13.1 trillion, the largest number that it has ever had. Clearly, the message to us as financial professionals is this. If we're only working in 1 or even just 2 of these sectors, we're leaving a lot of money on the table. Now, you already probably have exposure to some of the world's largest insurance companies. I'm going to show you how you can also have access to some of the world's largest banks and get compensated on that pool of money as well. You know, each of these 3 industries all try to play in each other's backyards. That's why they have similar products. But the reality is they all excel in different areas. The securities industry excels in growing assets and inflation protection. The insurance industry at risk transference and guarantees. And the banking industry in principal protection and FDIC insurance. Now, you and I might have some preferences as to which of these 3 sectors we spend most of our time in, or which of the 3 sectors we would most like to avoid. But the reality is, today's modern consumer moves their assets back and forth between these 3 economic sectors on a regular basis, depending on their life stage. For example, as they're starting out, they might have the vast majority of their assets in the bank because liquidity is the most important thing. But as they start to acquire assets, insurance protection and risk transference becomes more important, and you'll see assets gravitate over there. As they reach their peak earning years, you would likely to see more assets going into the securities industry to grow that nest egg for retirement. And then as retirement approaches, you're likely to see that money in securities start to ebb and flow back into insurance products and back into banking products because there's a point where you can't afford the risk that the securities industry has. So if you're going to be a true financial professional in today's world, you need to be able to navigate these waters back and forth and have access to products that reflect each of these three sectors. Now, if you've been in this industry as long as I have, and for me it's getting close to 30 years now, you've had this happen to you. You've got a couple of wonderful fixed indexed annuities that you think are the perfect solution to a lot of circumstances. And you're sitting across the table from Mrs. Johnson, and you've dotted all the I's, you've crossed all the T's, you've made your presentation, you've handled all the objections that you think are going to come up, and then Mrs. Johnson has one last question. And you know what it is. Okay, but is it FDIC insured? Well, we're professionals. We anticipated that this might come up. Heck, we've even rehearsed our answer over and over again. We know how we're going to respond to the dreaded FDIC insurance question. And they all go something like this. Well, no, but I've got to tell you, producer to producer, it really doesn't matter what we say next, because all Mrs. Johnson is going to hear is blah, blah, blah. Because for whatever reason, whether it's rational or irrational, Mrs. Johnson spells safety F-D-I-C. And there's nothing we can say to convince her otherwise. I'm going to show you a way that you can capitalize on that unfortunate circumstance. You see, traditional certificates of deposit have long been the investment vehicle of choice for consumers for that portion of their assets that they just simply couldn't afford to lose. They would typically get this certificate of deposit, which is a time deposit, down at the local, what I call, bank on the corner. The reason they would put the money into a certificate of deposit is because the bank would pay a higher interest rate if they were willing to leave the money on deposit with the bank for a more extended period of time. The bank would pay a higher rate than they would on more liquid accounts like a savings account or a checking account. These certificates of deposit were principal protected and guaranteed by the bank if held to maturity, so there was no principal risk unless something happened to the bank. But in that case, these funds were insured by the FDIC up to the statutory limits. Now, all of this sounds good until you get to what CDs are currently paying. According to Bankrate.com, the average 5-year jumbo CD right now is paying less than 1%. Less than 1%. Interest rates are at historic lows. Now, there is an alternative for these conservative savers. It's called a market-linked certificate of deposit. Market-linked CDs were first made available in the United States in 1987 by Chase Bank, but it was a product designed for the bank's wealthiest customers and were never made available to the average consumer until we came along. Market-linked CDs, although they are not securities, and no securities license is required to sell a certificate of deposit, have primarily been distributed by the securities industry. The reason is not that the product itself is a security. The reason is that market-linked CDs are issued in what's referred to as book entry form. In other words, there has to be a custodial account that has the capacity to hold electronic evidence of the CD for the benefit of the client. Now, for a broker-dealer, this is very easy to do. Nobody exchanges certificates of stock anymore or paper bonds. Everything is done electronically through a custodial brokerage account. That same custodial brokerage account easily accommodates a market-linked CD transaction. What we have been able to do here at Alternative Design, because of our long history with these banks in the institutional marketplace, is develop a compliant pathway that the banks have approved that allows you to offer market-linked CDs through Alternative Design without going through a broker-dealer. We're the only organization in the country that has been able to accomplish this. Market-linked CDs are issued by major global banks. These are the big boys, the world's largest banks, the banks that are worth trillions of dollars, not just billions or millions. Banks like Goldman Sachs. These are the largest banks in the world, and the products are issued through the U.S.-based subsidiaries of these major global banks. They are principal protected and guaranteed, just like a traditional CD, by these major global banks. And because they're issued through the U.S.-based subsidiaries of these banks, they enjoy the added protection of FDIC insurance up to the statutory limits, which generally speaking is $250,000, but there are many ways to go past that threshold of $250,000 and maintain FDIC insurance coverage. In short, market-linked CDs offer all of the protection of a traditional CD, the security of FDIC insurance, but because, like a fixed indexed annuity, it's linked to a market of some sort. In the case of the Goldman Sachs product, an index diversified across 7 different asset classes, it has the potential for a much higher rate of return. Now, why should you consider including market-linked CDs in your practice? Well, for one thing, it'll bring more buying units into your office because people will talk to you about FDIC insurance who aren't interested in talking to you about your other product lines. It will increase your case size. You'll be able to capture more assets because whether you want to admit it or not, you're leaving money on the table. And when you go back to your clients and prospects and talk about an FDIC insured product, suddenly money appears that they forgot to tell you about? Well, they didn't forget to tell you about it. They just assumed that if they had already made a decision to keep it in an FDIC insured account, you weren't going to be able to help them. You can now correct that misunderstanding. We know that if you put FDIC insured market-linked CDs on a seminar invitation, you'll get more buying units in the seats. We know that you're going to get an increased direct mail response if that's your particular prospecting methodology. And being able to offer an FDIC-insured product like this is going to give you access to an elite clientele. Now, I always ask the question, how much are you getting paid on money your clients have in the bank right now? I know the answer. For 99.9% of you, the answer is zero. Market-linked CDs pay a referral fee that may not be as generous as what you can get on an fixed indexed annuity, but when you consider that this is money that you very likely would have left on the table and that CDs mature and give you the opportunity to make another sale down the road, they begin to make more and more sense. The average referral fee that we're able to pay on a market-linked CD is currently between 2 and 3%. These fees are set by the bank. We don't have control over them, but as interest rates go up, so do the referral fees. So they're not as generous perhaps as an FIA, but can create some unique opportunities for you and help you make sales where you weren't making sales before. So who might be good candidates for a market-linked certificate of deposit? Well, your existing clients, because frankly, you've never talked to them about an FDIC-insured product before. And they have money that you're not able to capture at this point. This will help you capture some of those dollars that you left on the table. It's a great product for reapproaching prospects. You know, people that you had a good rapport with, things went well, but they just never quite became a client. This is a good, fresh way to reapproach them and maybe turn them into a client and earn other business down the road. There is no age limit on certificates of deposit. You know, what do you do with a 91-year-old who's in reasonably good health and still wants to grow their assets? Well, an annuity probably isn't going to be the solution. But folks, we take in money for people in their upper 80s and 90s, every single month. It's a great product for those seniors who are too old for your annuity products. By the same token, there's no penalty for taking money out prior to age 59 and a half in a market-linked CD. So this might be a good product for your clients who are too young for an annuity, because they're going to need access to the funds prior to age 59 and a half. And of course, we're seeing a lot of qualified money from baby boomers approaching or in that retirement stage of life. Excellent product for that because it's principal protected and guaranteed, and yet they can get an asset allocation strategy across 7 different asset classes. It's also a great product for that person that we come across every now and then who has what I refer to as product bias. You know the ones. As soon as the word annuity comes out of your mouth, they say no, even if it's completely appropriate and would do things that they really need done. They've heard some bad press. They had a friend who had a bad experience. They're just going to say no to that annuity. This might be a good product to substitute at that point. Make them a client and educate them over time and eventually make that annuity sale. The other thing that's important for you to understand about adding market-linked CDs to your practice is it's going to give you access to new markets, new pools of money that you can't get into with your current product line. We've taken in substantial dollars from independent trust companies. So these are multi-million-dollar orders that we'll be able to take in from trust companies that agents associated with us have found. Homeowners associations is fertile ground. Homeowners associations have long-term reserves that they're holding for the next 5 to 10 to even 15 years into the future for repairs that are going to be made eventually. And their bylaws are often very restrictive as to where they can place that money. Often it's restricted to only FDIC-insured accounts. They don't want to talk to you about an annuity. They don't want to talk to you about assets under management. They don't want to talk to you about your other product lines. But you can get in front of a board of directors, and it happens at Alternative Design every month, in front of the board of directors of a homeowners association with an FDIC-insured product that has the potential to earn them substantially more than they're able to get from the bank on the corner. Professional fiduciaries are another place we found that we have access to. Nonprofit organizations, very conservative with their money. Churches would be one example of that, but so would charities. And this product initially was used significantly in the institutional marketplace with pension funds and foundations. You might have opportunities there as well. Now, in order to offer market-linked CDs through Alternative Design, the process is very simple. We have a one-page non-disclosure agreement, which you can find in the materials section of your control panel. You can download it right now directly from this webinar and take a look at it, send it in. I don't think you'll have any objection with it whatsoever. That puts you in the information loop. All the agreement says is that you're not going to steal our stuff. We've developed a proprietary process that enables you to offer market-linked CDs when your competitors can't, unless they're securities licensed, and we want to protect that. That's all that agreement is for. Once we have that back from you, you're in the information loop. You have access to the agent portal section of our website where you'll find all kinds of wonderful information and marketing tools and so forth. Also in the materials section, you will find the BlackRock survey in its entirety that I referred to earlier in this presentation. You can download that as well. And I included at least one brochure in there on MarketLink CDs that will give you some information. I think actually I included two, one from Barclays Bank and one from BNP Paribas, which is the world's largest bank in terms of assets. They're based in Paris, France. They also have a headquarters in London, but they have a wholly owned U.S. subsidiary here in the United States known as Bank of the West, and they offer the MarketLink CDs through them. So you might want to take this opportunity to download those materials. There's information on where to fax the appointment agreement, or the non-disclosure agreement rather, once you have completed it. And once we have that, you'll have access to all of our resources, including live weekly webinars, as well as our library of webinars on demand and lots of other materials and so forth. Once again, my name is Tim Harding, and I'm available to you directly. If you'd like to give me a call with questions or concerns or issues, my direct line again is 858-240-2059. And my email address is tim.harding@adisusa.net. And so at this point, what I'd like to do is go ahead and take questions from you. If you have any, please go ahead and type the question into the chat box on your control panel, and I will be happy to respond to as many as you have. So we'll pause for just a minute while you give you time to type in questions. If you have none, then I will wrap up here promptly. Okay, at this point I don't see any questions, which must mean that I did such a thorough presentation that you have more knowledge than you even need. So with that, I will thank you very much for taking your time today to spend it with me. Look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you once again for your interest. Have a great week.